Welcome to the class of Clinical Physiology. I am Dr. Nuan Lin from Obstetrics and Gynecology Department of the First Affiliated Hospital of Shantou University Medical College. This week, we'll discuss functions of the reproductive system. Here are the learning objectives of this chapter. After completion of reproductive physiology sections, students should be able to describe the hormonal regulation of the reproductive functions, describe male and female reproductive functions, describe female reproductive cycle, and predict clinical manifestations caused by disorders of sex hormone production. Firstly, let's talk about the hypothalamus pituitary gonads axis. I will begin by sharing a case with you. Several days ago, a 21-year-old young woman presented to my clinic asking for birth control pill because she and her boyfriend did not want to have a baby right now. We all know that oral contraceptive pill can efficiently avoid pregnancy. But have you ever thought about how it works? Follow me and go through the regulatory center of the reproductive system, the hypothalamus pituitary gonads axis, and you will find the answer. Learning objectives. At the end of this section, you should be able to describe the main organs and their respective hormones along the hypothalamus pituitary gonads HPG axis. Illustrate the negative and positive feedbacks involved in male and female reproductive systems. Finally, interpret the physiological and pathological conditions associated with the disruption of the HPG axis. First, let's talk about the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is located in the base of the brain. It is critical for maintenance of homeostasis in humans. It regulates hunger and weight, metabolism, growth, body temperature, sleep, and emotion. Most importantly, it is the big boss that centrally controls reproduction. How does it play this role? The signal is sent by a relatively small population of specialized hypothalamic neurons and is mediated by gonadotropin-releasing hormone GnRH. GnRH secretion can be influenced by sex hormones, energy expenditure, and stress. Absent or deficient GnRH secretion can lead to hypogonadotropic hypogonadism, which is associated with a variety of human reproduction problems such as pubertal failure and infertility. Fortunately, this type of hormone deficiency can be fully reversed with exogenous GnRH therapy. Okay, the next question is, where does GnRH go? Now, let's look at the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland lies below the hypothalamus. After getting GnRH signals from the hypothalamus, the anterior pituitary sends out gonadotropin. Gonadotropin means a substance to stimulate the growth of gonads. Follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH, are the two gonadotropins. They are secreted and stored in cells called gonadotrophs. But where are the destinations of these two hormones? They go to the gonads. The gonads are sex glands. They are testes in the male and ovaries in the female. In the male, FSH travels in the blood and targets Sertoli cells in the spermatogenic tubules to stimulate inhibiting B and estrogen secretion, while LH acts on Leydig cells in the testicular interstitium to produce testosterone. Similarly, in the female, LH stimulates the thicker cells in the ovaries to produce androgens. FSH then stimulates the granulosa cells to convert these androgens into estrogen. Now we know the three major sites in this hypothalamus pituitary gonads axis and to where then they send their signals. We all know that hormone concentration is under strict regulation. So how does the big boss, the hypothalamus, know that there are already enough hormones? Don't worry, our human is very smart. The released hormones such as FSH, LH, estrogen, testosterone serve as messengers conducting signals back to the boss. They will go and tell the bosses, hey, there's enough or inadequate hormone. This process is called the feedback mechanism. In previous lessons, we have learned that there are two types of feedback regulation, positive and negative, in Dr. Zhang's lesson. In this section, we will focus on these two mechanisms in the context of reproductive physiology. Negative feedback mechanism predominates in the regulation of male reproductive function and most of the time during female reproductive cycle. There are receptors specific for different hormones in the boss's center. In the male, elevated testosterone in the blood can travel and bind to androgen receptors in the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, thus telling these two bosses, hi, there are enough hormones. Please slow down. In contrast, if there is inadequate testosterone, they will tell the bosses to produce more GnRH and gonadotropins. Similarly, in the female, initial lower levels of estrogen exert a negative feedback on hypothalamus and pituitary, thus stimulating more release of GnRH, FSH, and LH. After ovulation, the corpus luteum is formed from the empty follicle left behind and serves as a transient endocrine structure producing estrogen and progesterone. Both LH and FSH are significantly suppressed by the elevated estrogen and progesterone. This inhibition caused by the negative mechanism persists until near the end of the cycle, where progesterone and estrogen decline due to corpus luteal regression. The net negative feedback effect is a slight FSH rise, which initiates a new reproductive cycle. So far, we have only discussed negative feedback. How about the positive one? Well, in the female reproductive cycle, there is an exceptional period that is regulated by positive feedback mechanism. This exception occurs before ovulation, at the pre-ovulatory stage. As estrogen levels rise gradually towards the mid-cycle and reach a certain concentration, there is a positive feedback on the hypothalamus and pituitary, resulting in the LH surge and ovulation. Under normal circumstances, these regulatory feedback loops maintain appropriate male and female gonadal functions. Now, let's get back to the case today. The mechanism underlying some oral contraceptive pills is through the negative feedback in the female reproductive cycle. A pharmacologic dose of progesterone is contained in the oral contraceptive pills. Thus, a profound negative feedback effect is exerted on GnRH so that none of the gonadotropin is released. Ovulation is thus blocked to avoid pregnancy. Let's summarize our topic today. We mainly focus on the HPG axis in this class. HPG axis consists of hypothalamus to produce GnRH, pituitary gland to release FSH and LH, testes and ovaries to produce testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. A feedback system functions to maintain the hormone homeostasis and reproductive function. Negative feedback dominates most of the time in both male and female, with exception of the female pre-ovulatory stage, in which a positive feedback is exerted by the high estrogen to stimulate LH surge and ovulation. Here are the references. Next time, we will talk about male reproductive functions. Thank you. See you then.